to work on this portrait together, we'll be following 5 fundamental steps. The first is foundation, then formation, refinement, build, polish. Let's get started on the first step, the foundation. Here's the reference material that you can use to get started. A quick drawing, very simple, just lines. You can trace this onto your sheet of cartridge paper. And here we have an illustration, the first of the illustrations that I've given you, just highlighting the very light planes of the facial features. On the forehead to the right, just below the eye, the nose, above the mouth, the chin, and a little bit in the ears. Now, on this piece of cartridge paper, I'm working quite large so that I can demonstrate on a bigger scale what I'm doing here. So I've freehand. You decide whether you want to trace or draw freehand. But very quickly, I've drawn the face and the head and the main features. And what I've just done with a very, very light shade of watercolour, I've just highlighted not the medium tones, I would say the light tones. The very light tones, I've left the white, the paper, pure white, and probably I don't know if I will cover up even later on. So just to get started, the aim is to have a basic drawing of the face, and then with a watercolor wash, very, very light color, any color of your choice, but very, very light, just go over the light tones, leaving the lightest of the tones, the white of the paper. Let's move forward now with formation, where the idea is to start adding some deeper tones. We need to get a little bit bolder now. So you can see from the painting that I have here, those light tones. I've been very, very free with the brush. Don't become over obsessive in that first phase, just let that colour flow, and now you can see that I'm mixing a deeper tone of the brown that I was using before, and I wouldn't call this a dark tone just yet. You'll see what dark looks like later, but this definitely is a medium tone, and immediately you can see the contrast with the lighter forms below. Clearly adding bolder tones is going to give us a more sculptorial feel, maybe more of a 3D type of aspect. So I'm just I started with the eyes, I inserted the eyebrows and the eyeballs, then moving down to the nose. You can see I'm moving down the face, because the problem if you start going up and down, you might smudge the watercolour that you've already applied. So maybe it's better to, from up, work downwards. I've just been touching the mouth, the lips, and now I'm making the profile of the side of the cheek just a little bit darker to give it definition. And when I apply the colour, I'm applying it to the head now. I just put down water and then I just drop the ink into that water, and this is creating the area of the very, very short hair on the head. We can't paint, we can't draw every hair. We've just got to suggest. So this is a great little technique actually. Wet the paper, drip the ink in, and the ink goes where there is water, and it automatically stops as soon as it hits the dry paper. Okay, so now I can't touch the area of the head with all that wetting, so I'm moving towards the ear, the cheek and the side of the neck. I'm even using a larger brush. I'm sort of wedging in because the area that I'm working on, the cheek and the neck, it's bigger, so I need a bigger brush. If you're going to be using a small brush on this area, everything's going to become a little bit too finicky and over precise. When I go back to details, as you can see now, I get hold of a smaller brush. Still on the formation phase here, you can see that the face isn't finished, but we're already at way beyond a middle stage here. The refining comes later. Now, in the formation phase, we also need, if we're going to have a background, we need to add it here, because whatever colours we are using, they're going to be interacting with the tonality that we have within the portrait itself. In this background, I want a little bit, I don't want a flat colour because I'm using watercolours and inks, and that's so dynamic and fluid. So you can see that what I'm doing with a very big brush here is just adding a very, very watery Payne's grey. I want to leave a little bit of texture, so I'm using very rough paint marks. And also I'm just adding, the technique to add a little bit of salt to the surface on the wet pigment. Very important that the pigment is wet. Let's add a little bit of salt, and it's going to create some dynamic sort of organic cell-like shapes, and it's just going to break up the surface of the background. And you're left with all these sort of like organic cauliflower, flowery like shapes, just to add a little bit of movement to the whole image. Now, the next stage, we're moving towards refinement. And I'm just going to show you a photograph here of the lips and the bottom of the nose. You can see that the areas around the chin, around the shading under the chin, the cheeks, the bottom of the nose, very loosely done in light layers, just building up light layers. Now, in terms of refinement, I've just refined the mouth. You can see that I've added some white lines to the top of the lip, to the lower lip, just to give it a more three-dimensional feel, and as if the light is shining on certain areas. So the stage that we've got to now, we've got to slow down, we've got to work more slowly, more deliberately, and we've got to make more deliberate choices. We're not as loose and free. We've got to start adding definition and structure. The image is starting to come together now. In the build phase, the penultimate phase, we are adding texture, even more texture, and using tone for three-dimensional quality. So you can see here that even on the forehead, I've added some of the salt because that was a fairly large flat area. I've added the salt just to give it a little bit of movement, and I've made the cheeks a little bit darker, the shading under the nose, the nostrils, the eyebrows, the shading under the chin and the side of the neck. I've just made these areas a little bit darker, giving more definition, giving more of a three-dimensional feel. Here we are at the final stage now, which is polish or fine tuning. Now you can imagine we're not doing anything at all dramatic at this stage. We're working slowly, we're making very, very deliberate choices. And what I do recommend, this is what I do very often, before you do this stage, put the painting away for a couple of days. Don't look at it, don't be tempted. After a couple of days, get it out and you will see the portrait with a fresh eye. I guarantee you will see immediately, I need to work on the eye. There's not enough shading around the mouth. I need to work on the neck. What about the hair? Immediately, what needs to be altered will jump out at you. Remember, very little marks, just the marks that are going to make a difference. Don't overwork the painting. I know that's an art in itself, understanding when to stop. Okay, but I trust after this process that you'll have a good idea of just the very, very few marks that need to be added at this stage. One final point, you'll see on the photographs that just below the nose on the right, a little bit on the forehead, the ridge of the nose, you can still see some of the white of the paper that I've used. It gives a luminosity. It gives a certain luminosity and vibrancy to the surface of the portrait. Here's the final image. Please let me know how you got on. I offer a lot of workshops online and in person. Please like and subscribe and check out my website. You can contact me directly through my website if you're interested in any of the courses that I run.